Well, good day from Bermuda. Boys have just come back in. One more day to go, and we're into it big time. So we thought we'd just give a little review of how we've got to where we're at now, heading in. Oracle, we saw we're out earlier on today, and the boys have been doing some more tweaking and fine-tuning, and I can't believe how long we've been here. It's getting on for 5 weeks, and we haven't been short of excitement.
Well, it's been plenty of action, and the time's just ripped by, and here we are at the business end. It's about to get underway, the America's Cup, 35th.
Okay, well, one of the first things that happened when we looked back was we'd only been here a day, I think, and we had the old practice was going on, and Ben Ainsley came along with his love tap, and it kind of set things serious, didn't it? It put things into motion, but it set things serious, and it was, at the time, we thought, well, you know, the damage was pretty extensive, and we were worried about what was going on.
Well, it's for real, and what really came out of that was how brittle the boats are, and any touches was going to be major work for the shore crews. So really, I think it put the whole of the community on notice, really, about the speed of the boats, the vulnerability of the boats if they come together.
And that was only in practice, and it said a lot about Ben's attitude as well, didn't it? That he was going pretty gung-ho at that stage, and he was, you know, having a bit of a pop and a needle and all the rest of it. And at the same time, he was almost sort of setting himself up for what was going to happen later, because, you know, love tap, it was a lot worse than that, and there was no sort of sorry.
No, and it set a bit of a tone for Ben. I mean, he had another crash later on, and he sort of got a bit of a bad rap out of it in many ways. I do think it was an accident. I don't believe it was an intentional coming together, because there was some chat of that. But I think it was reflective of BAR being under the pump even before the Louis Vuitton got underway. Okay,
and when it got underway, who was first into action, and actually on the receiving end this time, and that was Ben Ainsley when Dean Barker came up, and you wouldn't call that a love tap, and it wasn't Dean's fault. He was in the right, but Ben couldn't get out of the way at on that starting issue with SoftBank Team Japan, and it was a really scary crunch.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, it came about. Barker was pretty aggressive, got the hook on Ainsley. Ainsley was to windward, quite a lot of breeze. I think it was about 14 knots at the time. And Ainsley went for that windward position, and I think he actually changed the foil pitch, and the boat reared up and really landed right on the deck of SoftBank, and a lot of damage done, but also there could have been injuries. Luckily there weren't. But,
yeah, I mean, that was really scary, because you know, when you talk to some of the guys afterwards who were there watching this hull sort of coming at them, and that was, again, you know, that was a sort of a point that was really made, that, you know, if you don't get it right, it could get very nasty, and probably pretty dangerous as well. And then we go from one of the ironies here is that we've heard a lot about an awful lot about Peter Burling and the starts not being particularly great, and yet at the same time,
hold it, Martin, I think we've got a question. We've got a question from
we've got Ryan here.
Ryan,
we've this one today. If we could pick the ideal conditions, what would they be? Well, this is a very interesting one.
Yeah.
Barely blowing would be my pick.
Well, it depends what hat I've got on. If I've got an Emirates Team New Zealand hat on, I'm saying under 10 knots. But if you want to see the boats in their full range of conditions and their full range of excitement, I think wouldn't it be good to see them from heavy conditions, so say around 20 knots or a little bit more, medium and light, because in my book what you want to see out of the America's Cup is who's the best boat and crew over a variety of conditions.
I don't know that my nerves would take all that. I think when it's really blowing, you just look at these things and you look, no matter how big the lead gets, you know how quickly it can get gobbled up. When it is blowing, then you start to think, oh, these boats are so fragile, and you look at them sitting up there absolutely going for it. But you're right, I mean, it would be. We've seen them in every condition, we've seen how fantastic it would be, but I mean, I'd be quite happy if they could just be nice and light and just keep winning. That would be, for the Kiwi point of view.
Again, it depends what eye I've got on, and I think the New Zealanders probably the forecast for this weekend looks pretty light.
Well, it does look light.
I don't think there'll be too many long faces around here if it's under 10 knots.
Okay, well, keep the questions coming. We'll go back to where we were before. We were talking about Ben Ainslie, and one of the ironies of that was that when the action did get underway, and Ainslie was meant to be coming and be all kind of aggressive, then Peter Burling, who was meant to be having start box issues, he was all over Ainslie. I wonder why.
Yeah, he certainly was. I think Ben had been under the pump a little bit, both from a racing perspective, but also, you know, a little bit of a cowboy on the water, which I don't particularly buy into. But I just wonder if it meant that he might have been a little bit gun shy, and that Peter Burling took him apart in round robin 1. To really be quite convincing.
Why do you think that would have happened? What would have been the sort of, you know, why would he have not done so well against others, but then do well against the man who was meant to be the master, who at the time did have the best record? Yeah.
Well, again, it's styles, and one of the things that I observed really through the round robins was that, especially Nathan Outridge and Peter Burling, if they could lead back to the line, they seemed to be more comfortable. And in that situation, it was Peter Burling was able to lead back, and Ben was looking for the hook. Pretty hard to get a hook on if the defence is good, if you're leading in.
Okay. Now, what all this has done, and we'll talk about this in more depth, I'm sure, what all this has done, the extra pressure being put on Burling, to all the guys, is it's sharpened them up without a doubt, and then it led to things like, you know, in particular the competition with Artemis, both in the semis and running up, and then again in the final, and it really polished them up. And that one with that race with the 9 lead changes, what a cracker that was!
Probably the match of the series in some ways, and you know, accumulating in that quite big call at the bottom, Mark Gate, which interesting there that the umpires fessed up. They put their hand up and said, "Hey, maybe we made a mistake."
But that was when that had the 9 lead changes, and Artemis was shooting for the line with a victory, convinced they'd got it, and then the blue light was flashing.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And it was when Ian Percy just lost it a little bit, and there was a bit of humour later about him being when the umpire, he let loose at the umpire, and then the umpire later on, he was saying, you know, he's a gentleman ashore.
Just to pick up on your point though, Martin, of Team New Zealand coming to this regatta, the 35th America's Cup, under-raced. We did see right through from round robin stage, semi-finals, and then the finals of the Louis Vuitton. I thought Emirates Team New Zealand, the afterguard, got better and better and better. I think I made that comment early on that what Emirates Team New Zealand needed, and they got, was hard racing, meaningful hard racing, because if, for me, you go through a Louis Vuitton Cup with pansy races, and I would regard 2013 in San Francisco like that, it doesn't help the challenger when you get up against Oracle. So how this one played out overall, I think, was very beneficial to Emirates Team New Zealand with tough racing.
Well, exactly, and your point is it was well made in the following race after that, the penalty business with the 9 lead changes, because the boys came out again then, and that was the day of the big wheelie, and they survived that and went on to win, and it was still a good match.
Absolutely.
The lost elevator.
Yeah. No, they. Well, again, if you see rudders pop out of the water and the elevator come out of the water, and there's breeze on, the next thing you're going to see is boats either losing control, nose diving, and we saw a bit of that. If you lose the windward elevator, watch out, there's something happening. I think we've got another question.
Was there something else coming through there, Ryan? No, this is during racing. During racing, who is the boss? Who is the boss on the boat? Well, it would have to be.
I think it's shared role, really.
Well, it's a shared role, but Peter Burling's driving.
Yeah, so he's in charge of the racing aspects. I must say, I was lucky enough in Auckland to go for a sail with the guys just before they came up here, and that whole communication and the line of who's responsible for what was very interesting. My impression, and I think this is how it's operating here, is you know, the racing aspects and the immediate aspects, it's very much Burling. But I do think having Glenn there, if things start to get a little bit hairy, in my comms that I heard in Auckland, it was just, hey, settle down a little bit, boys. You know, we've got to look after our tools. And,
well, he would. You might say that he's the mature head on the boat because he's the oldest by some mark, because he's 39, and a really significant thing about the Team New Zealand boat is that everybody else, of the 6 people on the boat, 1 is over 30. That's Glenn Ashby, and everybody else is under 30. And that's a pretty amazing,
huge turnaround.
Amazing, yeah. Well, it's the changing of the guard.
Huge turnaround. And again, let's go back to 2013. There's only one person in the sailing team from 2013, Glenn Ashby. Yeah. All the rest are new. So Emirates Team New Zealand, it's sailing team's new, but the whole team is. There's I don't know what the proportion is in the whole organisation, but certainly in the sailing team, Glenn Ashby is the only survivor.
It's interesting though when whoever it was ringing in there or signing in to ask the question, is that, and we go back to Peter Burling, is that he is responsible in that he is the one who's been carrying the can when things haven't gone so according to plan, and he's fessed up a couple of times to making mistakes. So from that point of view, then he's definitely. But
he's very comfortable with that. He's come out of a 49er. He's done multiple Olympic campaigns now, 3 of them. He's got a gold and silver medal. I think it sits very comfortably on Peter Burling's shoulders to be in charge and to make those, to be steering the boat, making the boat go quick, but also making the tactical decisions. I think that's just a continuation of the form in terms of the way he operates, and it's quite a big step up from a 49er to this, but it seems to fit comfortably on his shoulders.
And I think as well, correct me if I'm wrong about this, when I'm looking here at the when we're going to look at the Artemis and the SoftBank, when we're talking about really tight manoeuvres. I mean, these things are happening so fast. There's not a lot of time to start talking about it. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. I mean, they're coming together at some speed, and we saw in the Artemis SoftBank thing where they're coming together at that mark at really quite phenomenal speeds. And there's hardly time to blink. You've just got to make your call there and then.
And what I've said about Burling, Nathan Outridge is the same. Come out of skiffs, gold and silver medalists at Olympics, and of course in that incident, coming in on port, got to the zone first, so they owned the port rounding at the top mark gate, and then they threw that boat into a big manoeuvre, big tack, and of course there were flags flowing, and it was Artemis that got the advantage at that mount grounding.
Okay, right, we'll move on. We're going to go to Torrid Tuesday. On a day like this, it's hard to imagine what a filthy day that was. I mean, it was absolutely pumping, right on the limit. We had the race delayed. Well, we had everything that day, didn't we? I mean, first of all, we had the business of the boys here as the boat comes out of the water. A great sight. We had the boys here, this incredible shore crew, affecting the change, where they went out in those incredibly tough conditions, broke bits of their wing sail, came back in, changed the thing, we're out again inside, ready to race and win inside 50 minutes. And I mean, that was, you know, absolutely remarkable achievement. But while they were doing that, the start of the race had been delayed, which gave them that extra 8 minutes, which turned out to be completely vital. But then there was carnage, there was stuff flying around. Visibility was an issue. Look at today, and it's just so hard to imagine it. But it was, man. I mean, that was. I think it was amazing that more people didn't get hurt.
Yeah, it was on the edge, and it wasn't just Emirates Team New Zealand that had difficulties. All the boats had difficulties, and we saw fairings peeling off, and it was a big day. And I think it was a big day in context also for the America's Cup here in Bermuda, that it really put a little bit of a warning shot across the bows of all teams that, hey, be careful with these boats, they will bite you.
Well, that's what also makes you so nervous watching them go out in a blow, because you know that there is a certain fragility in them. So also on Torrid Tuesday, got to go back and have a look at it. We've got the terrible capsize, and the feedback we had back from, you know, all you people who've been looking at this and watching the racing. I mean, a heart in mouth, terrifying, jaw-dropping, all of that, and it was all of that, because, you know, to all intents and purposes, it could have looked as though the deal was over, the deal was done.
Well, for Emirates Team New Zealand, it could have been all. Look, I think everyone's first response was, are they safe, the crew? Yeah. And even Ben Ainsley, if you remember, the first thing he did is got on his comms on his boat and got to the BAR rib and said, get over there and help them, and I thought that was good. And you know, that's what Ben's about. He's a good bloke, and of course he's been with Emirates Team New Zealand and he knows people in the camp. But so that was the first response. The next big oh gosh factor was the damage, and a lot of it was superficial actually, with the fairings peeling off the boat, and there was certainly quite a bit of carbon floating around. And then the boat was brought ashore, and again the shore team at Emirates Team New Zealand, they rolled up their sleeves, got the boat in the shed, rolled up their sleeves, peeled off all the broken bits, and
well, for me, my absolute abiding memory and of that whole night was there was a full team meeting that night, and we all went in, and there was this sort of, I've described it as being like a sort of eerie calm, and there was no, oh no, this is a disaster. There was none of that, not the vaguest scrap of it, and it was just, right, we can fix this. We know what we're going to do. Everybody was going to put their hands up, but you know, there were, you know, people like the shore boss Sean Regan. He was said, right, we know the order. Not everybody can work on the same bit of boat at the same time. We've got to make this work. There's got to be an order to everything. But we're going to make this work. While all that's happening, we're in this meeting, and I'm looking back, and the guys who should have gone home hours ago, the people in the kitchen, because they just normally do one meal a day, they're out. They're getting a dinner organised for everybody, and it was superb.
Not a word said.
Not a word
just
said.
Happened.
Just you knew that was going to happen, and it was just the most astonishing attitude. And again, it's this thing where there's nothing kind of hierarchical here.
No,
it was
everybody
putting their hand up. I put my hand up. Peter told me to pull it down.
And it was declined. He put his hand up. They thought, oh no, it's all right. We might save ourselves an hour.
But it was fantastic to watch. They went at it. I mean, you know, and everything was staggered to make it work. And then they worked through the night. Then got another lucky weather break, and so they didn't have to just whiz the boat out when it was unfinished. They could, you know, so carry on and get it to being 100%.
Actually, that's an interesting point. Martin's just brought up the weather break. In 2013, New Zealand could not buy a bit of good luck with the weather. Here, from when we first arrived, they've actually been very fortunate with when things like the love tap that we've had a look at earlier. They were out of commission for 4 days. What happened is no one else could sail here for 4 days because of inclement weather. Then the start of round robin, remember, there was a delay in racing, and New Zealand got 2 days there, and no one else was on the water. And it carried on like that, and it's carried on right through, even at the end of the Louis Vuitton finals.
Right,
finishing a day early.
That's enough fingers crossed.
No, finishing a day early meant again the boat could be tickled, and sometimes just a little bit goes your way. Another question.
A little bit of karma, yes, Ryan. James would like to know if the wing has been repaired, and we've been privy enough to watch what's going on, and without giving away any secrets, the answer was yes. Yeah,
James, the wing's in the boat. It's just come out of the water now, and you probably saw it. That is actually the repaired wing, and what's interesting there, I was chatting to the guys when they put it back in, and it went back into the boat in exactly the same tune as when it came out, and amazing. I find that astonishing. Yeah. That the way Emirates Team New Zealand operates, full rig rebuild, the level of workmanship and the accuracy meant that the wing that was broken now is fully tickled, and they've done 2 days back out on the water with it, and all I see is smiling faces.
Well, amazing to watch these guys work on it, and it's amazing to be up close and see just what's there in that wing. I mean, they're a one design, so everybody has the same basic, but then it's all the tricky stuff that's inside it. It's so complex, and yet in the other part of it, it's like gossamer wings, isn't it? I was watching them pull the what do you call it? That
closer,
whatever, the tape sort of stuff. And it looks like it's like glad wrap or something ridiculous. They pull this glad wrap and then sort of iron it off, and it weighs nothing, but it has a certain strength. And then you know that all the frames inside, they look so light, but put them all together, they're incredibly strong, and it's incredible craftsmanship.
Well, you look at the wing, and it's just over 500 kilos, the whole thing, which is astonishing.
It is, and it's you know, again, massive credit to the shore crew. They're wonderful to watch, absolutely great. So, on to more things that we've learned. And one of the most satisfying things that we've learned, I guess, would be with the cyclors versus the grinders. And that to us has been illuminating, would be one word. And you've got this business where we waited a while to see it. It was a while before it actually came out. And the shot that we wanted to see most was like a split screen, where you'd got the grinders on one side, the traditional giving it this, and then you got the cyclists on the other. And particularly towards the end of the race, you see the grinders trying to get air in, and our lot are lined up. I mean, I've described it as being like a creature, like a sort of some kind of centipede type thing, because they're all like this. What's his name? Simon van Veldhaven, with his dents in his helmet from
been through a few helmets now, I believe.
Yes. And then the legs going like locomotives. I can't tell you how much work that involves, even with, that leg power. But to be having to do that with your arms, well.
Yeah, I think the whole cycling thing has really been validated, and more so with Oracle experimenting with a little bit of a unicycle, in the back. But two things for me is the efficiency and the amount of watts that they can generate, and now that is pretty self-explanatory. But the other benefit is the old aero package. And towards the second half of a race, we do see, certainly through the Louis Vuitton, the grinders our arm grinders on traditional pedestals starting to run out of gas, the form and the aerodynamic package of the cyclors staying really in the peloton, as we've called it. So we'd have to think, really, after seeing the Louis Vuitton, the cycling has been a success. And dare I say it, is that a change for the sport? Because often out of the innovations from America's Cup, we've seen it with 3DL, we've seen it with Millennium four-spreader rigs out of Auckland, and is this another one that we are now going to see grinding being performed in other boats using leg power, and perhaps we will. Well,
that'll be an interesting one, which brings us on very nicely to this question of fly time. We got the nice split windscreen thing, and then we got the fly time graphic, which was showing how long the boats were up, and of course the Kiwis were the first to go 100%. But that's the significance, isn't it, surely, of being able to produce more and more pressure, more oil, because to fly the boat, the more oil you have, the more you can fiddle with the little bits and pieces that hold the boat up on the water, to be simplistic about it. And the fact that they had that fly time was that 100% would be that you had the oil to play. He said that himself.
Yeah. And in fact, there was the 100%, and in the race before that, if I remember right, it was 99.8, and it was just because they touched the boat down. The finishing line is pretty close to the rocks here, and New Zealand touched down, quite close to not. So I think that is almost, if things are going well, it almost becomes a standard. And I expect in the America's Cup to see several 100% fly time races.
Yeah, from both teams.
The other thing that just to make a point there is with the cyclors and with the fly time, is the whole question of the utilisation of hydraulics for 100% usage through a boat. And again, is that something we're going to see more prevalent in the sport? The greatest sport of sailing, maybe it is.
Well, we'll find out that. We've got a bit of 2 weeks of pretty serious action between now and then that to find out whether that might be ongoing. But the question of fly time and how much you stay up is, then we come down to foil choice. So this whole crux of the matter is the weatherman has to make a call when they're going, what your setup is going to be that day. And we've learned a huge amount. We've certainly learned that clouds it can be spot on but it comes with a stress scenario.
He's a funny guy. In fact, he looked a bit happier today, non-race day, but aren't we lucky to have him? Woo. And I think, again, let's go looking forward to the match, and we look at Juan Vela over at Oracle, again, another very, very good analytical weather person. And I think it's David Bedford, isn't it, the meteorologist over there, and we've got Roger Badham here. So big calls, because it has their weather forecast, has an impact on what equipment the teams will select They have to do it at 9 o'clock in the morning, their declaration, and of course racing doesn't start till 2 o'clock that afternoon. So nervous hours, isn't it, between 9 and 2? Have you selected and have you decked the boat out with the right kit if there's changeable weather conditions?
And if you get it wrong?
Well, we did see that. In fact, in the second race of second day of the finals, when Emirates Team New Zealand went out on their light gear and they got away with it, and so they'd have learnt some stuff from that. But yeah, if you get it wrong, it could be disastrous.
Okay, now we've got another question. Yes, this Ryan. The current forecast for Saturday is light.
Under 10 knots at the moment. Talking to Clouds at lunchtime, he said it's a wee bit tricky at the moment. The weather models are moving around. On one side of the equation, it could be up to 15 knots. And we've got a bit of a gap in the middle. On the other side, whether it's to the east, I think to the west it's saying 15 knots, to the east it is saying 5 knots. And so I said to Clouds, well, in the middle it must be 10. And he said, well, sort of, but of course tomorrow will be the telling point, which breeze will be relevant. But at the moment, the forecast I read this morning was we can expect sort of about 10 knots. It seems to be where it's at. But look out tomorrow, we'll probably get a better grip on that.
Okay, now the other issue that we were going to talk about was you might get your foil package right, but if you're not tacking and jibing well, you're still going to get horribly punished. And what we've learned is that a touchdown, a submarine worse obviously, but even a comparatively light touchdown just absolutely yanks the handbrake on, and the chasing boat, of course, can be doing suddenly 2 or 3 times the speed that the boat that stuck it in is doing. And we've seen some massive leads be swallowed up like that.
The biggest one was that Artemis Emirates Team New Zealand at the bottom mark gate last time. I mean, we were chatting away doing our commentary, and it was game, set and match, 300 metres. Team New Zealand went into the gate, they got a little bit disorientated with where they were going, and it was, what, 1 second at the end?
Yeah, 1 second win in the end. But,
so that was, yeah, don't flag it away just because you're 300 metres in the lead.
But when you see the boat settle, and you know then that they've just handed a colossal advantage to the opposition.
I can remember, again, going back to Auckland, Grant Dalton said to me, I asked him the very question, I said, what is a downwind touchdown? He said it can be up to 300 metres. Upwind, if you touch down it instead of doing a foiling tack, could be 150 metres. Big numbers. Big numbers.
Okay. So bad tack and jibe best avoided. Another thing that was obviously best avoided is man overboard, and that was dramatic. I think the Kiwis were going to win that one anyway, but it was obviously compounded by Nathan Outridge losing his footing and going over. But I seem to remember you saying you were talking about the fact that was pressure because there was another come from behind performance by the Kiwis, and they were coming up to a crucial manoeuvre. And he was racing across to get into position to bring the Swedish boat back on the attack, and he just overcooked it, and he was gone like that. And it was pretty scary. 2 things for me with that was
New Zealand were ahead anyway. I think they showed really good pace. They were out on the starboard ley line. Nathan, or Artemis, was on the port, and it was during that tack. But New Zealand had a serious piece of them already by then. But yeah, I would have thought a lot of pressure turns into mistakes, and Nathan had a swim. Then there was a safety aspect, which I think we all held our breath, and I know it was discussed by race management and after the review, and things were put in place that if someone else went in the water, there was a clear plan of what should happen.
Okay, well, hopefully that won't be happening. We're going to wrap this one up now. It's been a little trip down 5 weeks of memory lane, and I mean, the butterflies are starting for me, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. And I'm just looking over there, Oracle now craning out, wondering what they've got. We're wondering what they've got here. And it's, hang on a minute, I think we've got one more question coming in before we close. It's each of us, honest opinion. Well, you've nailed it. Heart and head. Well, the answer is that we just don't know, and it's the same with. I mean, you've done a lot more America's Cups than I have, but the bottom, and that's it, isn't it? Until they line up on that very first race, you're not going to know. Of course, what my heart's saying, please, please, please let it be the Kiwis, obviously. I mean, and that goes for a lot of people here as well. And I mean, well, you're exactly the same. I mean,
yeah. For me, I think Oracle go in as the favourites. Just the mere fact that the defender, a lot of the decisions here have given them an advantage. They go in with a point. Going in with a point. Emirates Team New Zealand start on -1. Oracle have got to win 7 races. So I think they do go in as the favourites. However, I think the end of the Louis Vuitton finals, because it was so tough, and Emirates Team New Zealand at the back end of the regatta looked so dominant, I was originally thinking 60-40 to Oracle. I think the margin has reduced, and maybe just under even money for me.
Well, I wonder what everybody else thinks, and we certainly know from what we understand that, you know, the best wishes have been coming in for the team and all the rest of it, and certainly here, you know, there's a feeling that the underdogs, you know, maybe it's time that they had their day, and we live in hope.